Happy Friday, everyone. The topic we're going to get into today is that of one that we don't often like to hear about, but it's one that the scripture calls us to, and that is partakers of his suffering. 1 Peter 4:13. But rejoice to the extent that you partake of Christ's sufferings. Now, when we hear Christianity, when we hear about God and coming to Christ, what we want to hear about is our future glorification in heaven. What we want to hear about is the covenantal blessings as we obey him, as we raise our children to know him, as we honor our God with our marriages, and we want to hear about all the blessings that stem from following him. And there's a part of that, right, in the here and now in which God will bless us. But to get to a road of blessing, we first must be coming to a road of suffering for God to make us, mold us, and shape us. Jesus says in the parable of the sowers that many will turn away from the faith. They'll believe the message of the gospel, but they will turn away from the faith because of trials and tribulations. Chambers says this: if you are going to be used by God, he will take you through a number of experiences that are not meant for you personally at all. They are designed to make you useful in his hands and to enable you to understand what takes place in the lives of others. Because of this process, you will never be surprised by what comes your way. Or perhaps he should have said, you should never be surprised by what comes your way. So if you have that understanding, right, of God working in you, not just for something he wants to show you, but of what he wants you to show others and how he wants to mold you, then there should never be a surprise of what comes our way. That's my paraphrase of Chambers there. That's the point he's, I believe, trying to get at. Now, he brings up a point, he'll go on to say in his devotional, of using a person that you're annoyed by or you don't like dealing with, and you'll say, oh man, I just don't know how to deal with this person, right? And Chambers points out that, yeah, you should know how to deal with this person because God has been bringing that person into your life to teach you something, to try to grow you, to try to get you to be able to deal better with people, but you just keep rejecting what he's trying to show you. So, interesting point. I'm not going to read it all, but that was a point he makes. I want to read another part from the devotional, and it says this: when it comes to suffering, it is part of our Christian culture to want to know God's purpose beforehand. I think that's still true today. In the history of the Christian church, the tendency has been to avoid being identified with the sufferings of Jesus. People have sought to carry out God's orders through a shortcut of their own. If I could paraphrase him, you don't have to go through all that trouble, just do it this way or that way and bypass the painful growth process. God's ways is always the way of suffering, the way of the long road home. It's true. Let's keep reading. Are we partakers? He has some questions here. Are we partakers of Christ's sufferings? Are we prepared for God to stamp out our personal ambitions? It's a tough question. Are we prepared for God to destroy our individual decisions by supernaturally transforming them? It will mean not knowing why God is taking us that way, because knowing would make us spiritually proud. We never realize at the time what God is putting us through. We go through it more or less without understanding. Then suddenly we come to a place of enlightenment and realize God has strengthened me, and I didn't even know it. I think of the Apostle Peter, whose goal in life was fishing and catching fish, and that was his identity and role. And Christ comes and takes what he loves and knows and gives him a new one. So he had one ambition, he had one goal in life, and God strips that all away, and Christ gives him new goals and new ambitions. And that's hard for us as humans, right? We usually want God to help us reach our goals, for God to come down and help us with our ambitions. And we'll say, God, we'll glorify you if you help us do what we think you want us to do. Versus God, take me, mold me, make me. But the important thing, as I think as we close here, is, as he points out, we don't know where God is going a lot of times. So it's not for us to question and ask why in every situation. It's to be obedient. It's to be obedient day in and day out. This past year, 2 years for myself has been crazy, right? Lord, what are you doing? You're moving me churches or the church location, and people are changing because you're going from here to there, and the COVID, and what's going on, right? You want to know where you're going to be in the answers. And some of you guys might be in the same position with work or relationships or future, what have you, right? But we got to trust and we have to obey. God will work it out in the end. let's think on that, and we'll see you tomorrow on Saturday.